What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Switch Up Sports, and today we are doing our classic athlete and just individual interviews. We've got a guy that I'm bringing on here. His name is Tim Duffy. He's a gentleman that does a lot into this world, especially on social media, positively, providing an impact to, especially young men in the wrestling world, that he does some coaching on, but just his background and the way that he grew up is a guy that, I feel I get along with very well and my backgrounds and my beliefs and values. And I would just like to allow Tim the floor today with an interview. I'd love to get to, know more about him and kind of see where we line up on some of these things. But more than anything, I just think that he's doing a phenomenal job right now on social media. Again, what he's doing in the wrestling world with what he provides to wrestlers with both strength and actual just technique basis, it's phenomenal. Without further ado, let's welcome in Tim Duffy.
Thank you very much for that intro, Quinn. So just kind of talking about my background a little bit. I am super involved in the wrestling community, but for a big chunk of my early life, wrestling was not any aspect of my life. No one in my family wrestled. None of my relatives wrestled. So I kind of got started off with baseball and soccer. Those were my first two real sports I kind of started to take serious. Didn't stick with baseball for too long. I think I kind of did that to fifth grade. And then I kind of really started to pursue soccer. I was really passionate about it. I played goalie for pretty much my entire career. And then my eighth grade year, I broke my jaw playing goalie. And so that kind of stopped my pursuing that field. I tried to come back after the jaw break, but I was way too nervous in the net. I just couldn't do all the responsibilities that are needed of a goalkeeper. And so
Right.
I ended up playing other positions, but it was just never the same. I really did enjoy goalie. And once I got to high school, the high school that I went to, Carl Sandburg High School in the suburbs of Chicago, was a very good wrestling program. My freshman year, they won state, but even before then, they had 3 team state titles, a whole list of individual state champions. And so they were always known for being good at wrestling. A lot of the friends I made my freshman year also happened to wrestle. And so that freshman year, I didn't go out at all. They tried to get me to go out, but I was very much nah, I think I'm going to stick with soccer, even though I was kind of starting to fade away from it. But I went to a few home duels. I saw how fun it was. I saw, we were a talented school, so we had a good crowd there at all the home duels. And I kind of made the decision almost towards the end of that freshman wrestling season that I was going to go out and wrestle the next year. So I did the summer camp, got my butt kicked. I got humbled. The first time I really ever got my butt kicked was by a dude that was 30 pounds less than me. And, for some people that might be screw this, I'm not doing this sport. But I was so amazed that someone that small could just easily pick me apart that I was all right, I have to fully invest myself into learning everything that I can. And I knew, most kids started wrestling, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. And so I knew I was starting way later and behind a lot of people. But I think, the people I had surrounding me, the coaches, but also just my parents, I think they had instilled a really good work ethic of, not making excuses and just kind of dealing with whatever you're dealt with and just making the best of that situation. So ended up wrestling sophomore, junior, senior year, really enjoyed it. Was never a varsity starter, but I really did appreciate everything that I learned in those few years. And honestly, a lot of my closest friends today are from high school wrestling. So the bonds that I made, I'm eternally grateful for, the few years I got to do high school wrestling. But that's kind of where I got initially involved in the sport, was just starting a little bit later in high school.
Yeah, I can feel for you on that one. I grew up playing all different kinds of sports, and it's funny, when it comes to soccer, my soccer career, ended in 8th grade, the same as, my baseball career ended sometime in middle school. But, like you were talking about with, the kids that started from the really young age. I mean, I was one of those kids that, wrestling was one of my first sports because, I was a gymnast
Yep.
and a wrestler at 4 or 5 years old. So those being my first 2 sports. But yeah, man, soccer was a blast. I mean, baseball was a blast too. And yeah, I mean, just wrestling and the challenges that you face and some of the things that you go through. So, I mean, what was kind of like your favorite part about whether it be soccer or baseball or wrestling? Like each one kind of has their own little tendencies and little oddities to them. Like, was there something that stood out specifically? Like, I know, with wrestling, like, yeah, we all go through hell, and sometimes that bond does get created. I mean, it's sometimes like you look to the military, it's like, yeah, they go through some stuff, and they grow together. And I feel like that's kind of why wrestling is so great to that. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like we're all miserable to a degree. Like, hey, we're all
Yep.
pulling 20 pounds. Like, this sucks. Like, yeah, it does suck. You're like, heck yeah, it does. So
Yeah.
just, kind of the random stuff. But, outside of just the wrestling thing, other, fun aspects of sports that were some of your favorites.
So I'd say out of like baseball and soccer, baseball is definitely my least favorite, which kills my dad. He played baseball in college. I think he really wanted me to kind of take to it, but the sport just was really slow paced for me. I
That's
did
how I
enjoy
felt.
like the time that I played, but yeah, there was a lot of times in games where I just felt like I was standing around doing nothing, and I was always on really bad teams. So never had a lot of success. So I think that kind of killed my interest in it. For soccer, I think what really kept me involved in soccer was I played with like almost the same people from third and fourth grade all the way to when I stopped playing my sophomore year at high school. So I had friends that like I said, we just played all the time together. And I think it's any sport. Whenever you have a group of guys that can stick together for an extended period of time, one, you're going to have some pretty good success just because you know one another, you know your strengths and weaknesses. So I'd say the team aspect of soccer was what I was really passionate about. Um, I love the game itself. I'm not like it's funny. Like I played all those years. I never liked watching soccer, but I loved playing it. Um, just because some games in soccer it is 1-0, and from a spectator perspective, like that is kind of boring. But when you're involved in it, soccer is you're always moving. There's never like a slow period. So that's why I really kind of gravitated towards it. And then towards the end, I just kind of faded away just because I wasn't putting in the amount of time that I needed to keep up with my peers. And so, I wasn't getting as much playing time. And I just kind of, especially when I first found wrestling, that like just instantly grabbed all my attention. Like I said earlier, like I knew I was so far behind everyone that I had to give it my full attention if I wanted to, at least be somewhat competitive in the room. And then what I say like I liked about soccer was the team aspect. Wrestling still has that team aspect, but the individual component of it, I really learned to love. In soccer you can blame, oh, we lost because of so and so. But like for wrestling, when you lose a match, it is fully kind of on your shoulders. Obviously there's some things that are out of your control. Maybe the ref makes a bad call, but at the end of the day, there are probably things that you could have done to increase your likelihood of being successful in that match. So, learning to take full responsibility for my actions was really important, especially like just in high school in general. I think at least like when we're in high school, we kind of go through phases where we're probably not the best version of ourselves that we can be. And wrestling really taught me that like, hey, whenever you screw up in life in general, you can't blame others. Like you have to be the one that says, all right, what did I do wrong? So I really kind of latched onto that. I think everyone it's cliche, but like when you do wrestling, life is easier to an extent because you've had to learn these life lessons in the practice room. And so that's a very controlled and safe environment. And so when you kind of learn those lessons there, when you're then tossed out into the real world, it's just a little bit more clear to you of like, okay, like my actions do have impact on not only myself but others. Um, so life lessons is just what I took away the most from wrestling, and especially now as a coach, that's what I try to preach to my athletes. I work with freshmen, so we don't expect freshmen to be superstars year one. We explain to them that like, hey, you're probably going to take your lumps more times than you probably want, but if you can get yourself that right mindset, it can really set yourself on a good trajectory for the rest of your high school career, even if you don't pursue wrestling for all three of those remaining years. But if you just take the lessons that you learned from this year and apply it to the rest of your life, that ultimately is like the most beneficial thing of wrestling. We all want to succeed, but most of us are only athletes for a very short portion of our lives. And so, we're going to be humans for the rest of that. So get as much out of it you can for these like short amount of years that you're going to compete. And you're probably going to set yourself up to be in a pretty good spot for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned like in terms of like yeah like wrestling super hard like you can do anything else after that like the whiteboard. I literally almost put that quote on the whiteboard because I like to
Yep.
have random stuff I put on the whiteboard, random quotes, random questions, and I was like, should I put it? I was like, nah. I was like, oh, it's kind of self evident, but we'll get into it at one point or
Yeah.
another, and that's kind of where my shift has definitely happened of having played so many sports and been on so many different teams and in a part of different locker rooms and seen people from different perspectives, different backgrounds. Sports is truly the best breeding ground for development as a young kid. Like I'm always going to be able to
Absolutely.
push and say, hey, how can we get more kids involved in sports? How can we do more to get them involved in sports? Because you talk about life lessons, it is a game, but it breaks you down and it causes a lot of emotion. It makes you upset. It forces you to try new things and you do fail, but you also succeed. And so many people, get into life and whether they, are a young adult, you talked about, having freshmen. Well, there's a lot of freshmen right now that are really confused and they don't know what's going on in life. They don't know who they are. They have some people saying, you're just fine who you are. You're not going to change. You don't need to change. When in all actuality, you do need to change. If you don't
Yep.
like who you are, you can change. Now, you need to decide who you want to be. You need to decide what you want to stand on. You need to decide your morals and values. But if you're around a ton of people and you see a ton of different backgrounds and you go through these tough experiences, you grow as a person. You get better. You understand life differently, and sports are the perfect opportunity to do that. You get broken down and you fall flat on your face time and time again. You're in the practice room grinding, putting in the work, putting in the time. And you know what? It doesn't pay off after one day. You can't show up to one practice and now you're a magical, perfect wrestler or a baseball player or soccer or
Yeah.
volleyball or track. It's like you can't do it once. You have to do it multiple times. You have to put in the work day after day after day when you go, is this working? Like, am I getting
Hmm.
better? Am I not? Like, I'm still losing, but like, I'm putting in all this work. Like,
Yeah.
why is it not showing off? And it's like, sports teach delayed gratification. They teach dedication. They teach consistency. They teach you have to put in the work before you can get anything out of it. It's the classic Bible values of you reap what you sow. So are you going to sit back on the sides and not do anything? Or are you going to put the hard work in the spring to plant the seeds? Are you going to put the work in to tend to the field, to pull the weeds, to make sure that things aren't happening? Are you going to tend to the field and walk with the water and make sure that things are healthy and things are going as needed? It's hard work. And then you
Yeah.
see the benefit of it at the end. And this like attack on sports and saying, oh, kids need to go do this, or they're not confused and they just need to be put with this. And it's like, no, they are confused. They
Hmm.
need to understand that, hey, you can do anything you want to do. You can purely do anything you want
Yep.
to do. You want to be a champion. You want to be the best data tech analyst. You want to be the best in science. You want to be the best in math. You want to write a book. You want to start a business. You can do it. But sports are
Yep.
really that avenue to do that. And so if you had to say to a kid, I mean, I know you have your own. Like say you coach freshmen,
Hmm.
but like how is there a different avenue for kids that might not have that access to sports? I know some of the workouts and some of the things that you and I have posted, or sometimes maybe things go on about or anything. So like if not sports, do you think there's another arena or something available that these kids are going to be able to have that access to understand these life lessons, to grow as individuals? Like what are some other avenues that they can go down? Like if they maybe not, they might be in an area that they don't have sports, or maybe they don't have something as a direct access, or whatever's going on. Do you have advice to that, or another way that they can go about things?
I think, especially like, there's so many different things that you can like fully dedicate yourself to in life, whether it's art, music. I played like the cello for most of my life, and I can even make comparisons between getting good at an instrument and getting good at a sport. Um, I probably didn't practice as much as I should have with my instrument, but like when I did start practicing a lot, it was very obvious that I was getting better. And so I think whatever you kind of fully invest yourself into, you can find like the community aspect that you get from sports, but you can also learn those life lessons. I think sometimes it might be a little bit more difficult. It helps having like a role model as a coach that can kind of direct you in that right direction. And when you don't have that, you are going to make a lot of mistakes on your own. The coach is almost there to kind of, at least like how I approach coaching. I made a lot of mistakes in how I, practiced and how I prepared for competition. And so my goal as a coach is I want to make my wrestlers better than I ever was. I want to help them avoid those mistakes. And so when you don't have a mentor, that is sometimes difficult. You are going to have to just have those hard experiences more often potentially. But I think whatever people gravitate towards, I think they can still find those benefits that sports provide. I think the easiest and kind of the most obvious, like we are very well aware of it, is like just getting involved, like almost like in a gym community. I'd say for most places, like I can always think back to the first gym I worked out at and all the people that I would see there. And when you're in there day in and day out, you're naturally going to see the same faces. You guys start making little conversations like, oh, hey, like awesome to see you here again. Um, I was very lucky. Like the place that I worked at, there was a lot of older people that worked out there that were very supportive of, the many high school lifters that were also there. So even if you're not involved with the sport, the gym community is a great aspect. It can get toxic just like any other community, but I think for the most part, I always enjoy my time when I'm working out is because I had those positive experiences starting off. But yeah, whatever you kind of gravitate towards, whether it's sports or arts or anything else in between, you can still learn amazing life lessons.
Yeah, I think even it is good that I think you brought up the side and acknowledging the fact that there are pitfalls and there are downsides that do happen in different communities, and there are problems and issues that do come up, and you mentioning in terms of the gym community and some of the issues that go on there, and whether it's toxic or there's random, we can list out a lot of different problems, but to
Yeah,
to to say that those problems are a bigger thing, and they are more of an issue when you don't look at the bigger picture of holistically what percentage are seeing only the positive side of the benefits, what people are
exactly.
now mentally tougher, what people are now physically more fit, what people have their body healthier and operating better because of being in the gym. And I think that when like people want to talk about, oh well, they might come up to me and say something, or oh well, I feel uncomfortable to do this, that, or the other. And it's like life is uncomfortable. Every moment of
Yep.
life is uncomfortable. There's never an opportunity where it's like, I've never done this before and it's a new thing, I feel amazing about it. I think
Yeah.
that trying to say that, oh, you should feel fine and amazing all the time, it's a lie. And and saying, oh, only focus on the negatives is also a problem. Like, hey, I acknowledge that there are issues inside of the gym community. I acknowledge that there are, you know, people that end up at the gym that probably aren't good people. There are people that want to take the shortcut and want to take steroids, or they just want to take a pill, or they just want to do things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
Yeah.
waking up at an alarm, and you get up, you go to the gym, and you get a workout in, and you go about your day. That is the lessons that you will learn over the long term. It's about putting in the work. It's about, oh, the alarm went off. I'm laying in bed. It's cold.
Yeah.
I don't feel great, but I know I have to go to the gym. Why? Because I don't want to go to the gym. Most days I don't
Yeah.
want to go to the gym. Today, I didn't want to go to the gym today. I genuinely didn't want to go. But did I go?
Yeah.
Yes. And that is the reason. I was uncomfortable. I didn't feel spectacular. I didn't wake up and spring out of bed with tons of motivation and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to go." Motivation wears off. And saying, "Oh, you
Yeah.
have to be motivated. Oh, you have to do that," like focus on the negatives.
Yeah.
I think it's a really bad way to go about
Yep.
living life, and I think so many people have been so centered on that. I will acknowledge the problems. I will acknowledge the issues. But if you want to drill down into
Yep.
them, we can do that too. So I'm interested about the whole cello thing. That is interesting because I've played the recorder. I tested about on the harmonica for like 3 weeks, but that about is my music extent. Other than I've got a buddy who makes music and is a rapper, and like I'll throw a beat on and freestyle every once in a while. But like that's my music
Yeah.
extent. So what made you pick the cello? What was that like a glaring thing of, hey, I want to play this?
Yeah. I had three older siblings. Two of them played the cello, and then one played the violin. My mom had like played the piano as a kid and into high school, but
Nice.
I think they were just like my parents were very much just like, hey, you don't have to do this for a long time, but we want you guys to give it a shot. Obviously, there's so much out there that of like kids who learn how to read music and also play it. They just kind of their brains are a little bit more developed. And so like I don't know if that was the reason why my parents did it or they just wanted us to kind of be diverse in all the different things that we tried. But um my most of my siblings kind of once they got to high school, I think only my brother was the one that did all 4 years in high school. My two sisters, I think they did freshman year and then they were kind of done after that. Um, I think I kind of obviously I had them to lean onto. I always grew up hearing them play, and so when at least for the school district I was in, fourth grade was like the first year that you could start playing. And so as soon as we had the opportunity, I signed up for it. I just liked the cello because, like I said, that's what my siblings did. That's what with, and I feel like I took to it pretty quick. Because I played the full glow like a nerd or something negatively. High school, like I said, I played all senior year that had no idea that I played the cello. I from people so much just because I was like myself. I was like, I can't let people on the wrestling team know because I was insecure. I just wanted like people to have a certain perception of me. But when I look back at it now, I was like, dude, I wish I had invested in myself so much more. I wish I still played to this day. Like, I think that's like the coolest thing when people can just play an instrument. Like, there's a few kids on the wrestling team who are into playing guitar, and I make it like an emphasis to really hype them up about that. Like, hey, keep working at it. Like the one kid on last year's freshman team, he like created an Instagram page and it's like him just practicing. And I tell him, dude, that is the coolest thing ever because I don't want them to have that perception that I had of myself where it's like, oh, this isn't cool. I don't want to tell people about it. So yeah, whenever like you are doing something where, maybe it's in the public perception, oh, that's kind of lame. Like if you are passionate about it, do not care what those people say. You're always going to have people that are, for whatever reason, whether it's they're insecure, they're jealous, or whatever, they're going to tell you that's not cool. If you find enjoyment in doing it, try to ignore those people. It's hard. It takes a lot of experience, but screw them. Do what you want, especially if it is something cool like playing an instrument. So yeah, it was something I hid for way too long, but yeah, I'm always gonna support someone, especially now, like a kid that I work with, regardless of what type of instrument, whether it's making beats, rapping, playing the guitar, doing drums. I love it all.
And like you talked about music, whether it has some type of different developmental structuring that happens in the mind or just the frequency in itself. Like, I mean, music is always,
Yeah.
it creates such a passionate feeling in so many individuals. Like you look at so many different shows or, you just listen to an amazing piece of music and it makes you feel some type of way. Like,
Yep.
people talk about like beautiful music. It's just, it, it's hard to say it's beautiful, but then like when you listen to it, like it's just a certain feeling that overtakes your body, and
Yeah.
it's incredible, and I love it. And music has such an impact, and understanding how to play an instrument, again, rewiring of the brain, or making, other comprehensions, and the ability to, I didn't know how to do this. I picked it up. I was terrible at it. And now I can play 25 songs. Now I can play 100 songs. Now I can stream or do all of these different things, and it's like now it becomes natural. Now it becomes second nature, and it's like, "Oh,
Yep.
I could do that with anything?" Bingo. Like there's your answer. And so I think to kind of wrap it all up, as we've been on a perfect self-help improvement of hey, there's multiple different avenues, there's different ways to do this, there's different outlets, there's different abilities, music, art, sports, even just learning a new language, or
Yeah.
getting into the gym and pushing yourself, and seeing what challenges you can do. But if you had to summarize it up in a I guess semi-specific statement, what would be the one thing that you could say? I guess it's hard to generalize as a whole, but like, being
Yeah.
a coach, having your background and your experience, what would be the one thing that you would tell to, let's say, your younger self at 10 years old or at 15 years old? And I know we have our own problems, we have our own issues, but like, what would that one thing that you would say to your younger self that you feel would propel you today, that would help you today, or help a kid who might be that age and might have gone through some of the same things?
I think we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but be willing. We get so often in our head, we want everything now. We want, to be an amazing wrestler now. We want to be a great musician right now, especially with social media. We see people at that upper echelon of what is possible. And it's kind of easy to get caught up in wanting something. But if you just put in a little bit of time and effort each day, it could be something like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of just working on a certain skill that is eventually going to get you to that end point. It doesn't seem like we're making any progress in the moment, but you take 10 minutes a day and multiply that for an entire year. That's a lot of time that you spend towards working towards your craft. And so I think sometimes I would get into this, really motivated stages where, I'm putting in multiple hours a day of working towards something. And then, like we said, motivation doesn't always last. And then you're kind of left with, like, I don't want to do this today. But if you've already kind of built that framework of, doesn't matter how motivated I am, I'm getting a little bit of work in today, even if it is only 5 or 10 minutes. Just kind of building that understanding, I think, goes such a long way, regardless of like whatever field you're really trying to get towards. And a quote that like really kind of like cemented that was, I think it's like from Michelangelo. It was one of the first times he like debuted like one of the sculptures he made, and everyone's telling him, "This is insane! Like, you are amazing! Like we've never seen anything like this." And he responded with like, "If you saw how much time and effort I put into my craft, this wouldn't seem like amazing. Like, this would just be like expected of me." So put in that time and effort, and eventually you will get to that point where you are getting what you have put in. So like, a Bible verse I love is like, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, but the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. So stay diligent, keep working hard, and it might not happen today, tomorrow, this week, or this month, but there will come a point where all that hard work is going to pay off.
I love it. That is a message that I know you said, in terms of motivation, and it's one of those things that it comes and goes. But you know what? Right now, based off of that, man, I'm ready to run through a wall. I absolutely love it.
My
This
man.
is this is something that, I think more of these conversations is only going to help in understanding. There is so much more that we can do. We are an amazing people. We are an amazing human race. We can do incredible, amazing
Yep.
things, and we can push ourselves. We can do more. We can learn more. We can become better all the time. There's no stopping us. We are, the statement I say all the time, is born to win. And my whole basis is
Absolutely.
always been born to win. And you spoke, I feel, directly to that of wake up, get after it, put the work in, keep putting in the reps. You're going to be amazing. You're going to get after it. It's the Michelangelo thing. When you put in the
Yep.
time and effort, it just kind of happens. You become a natural. You wake up and boom, that's the result. It's not an overnight thing. It's a lot of nights, and one night it just happens to be there. It's amazing.
Yep.
So Tim, I appreciate you taking the time on a Friday when you could be doing a lot of other things, but speaking to, the men, the youth, the any generations or any person that wants to hear this and understand how much better you can get as a person and how much you can learn, how much you can understand, because you are born to win. You can achieve anything if you put in the work. And Tim, I appreciate you. Have a fantastic rest of your Friday. We'll talk soon. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Quinn.